Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My name is Landon Hart. I'm 33 years old, a U.S. Army officer, and today, I want to tell you the story of what I've lost, what I've fought to reclaim, and how I learned to rise from the ashes of my own life. The story begins at my parents' well-kept two-story house in Texas, where the hot winds blew through my bedroom window every August. That house, red brick, modest, and always spotless, was the kind of place that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Not because it was luxurious, but because it was always so perfectly maintained. The wooden floors were polished to a shine, and there was always the faint smell of floor cleaner lingering in the air, mingling with the warm scent of my mother's morning coffee. No, I'm not a millionaire. I don't own a mansion or vast wealth. What I have is a heart that still beats strongly and a rifle that's been my companion through dusty battlefields and long, sleepless nights. That rifle has felt the same burning sun, the same cold rain, and the same trembling hands. My parents, Frank and Ellen Hart, were the very picture of Texas's middle class. They weren't rich, but they were never poor. They had pride in everything they did, especially when it came to their home and their sons. My father, a retired banker, was the kind of man who ironed his shirts so sharp they looked like they could cut glass. He wore a neatly pressed suit even to the grocery store. Always composed, always in control. My mother was the type who noticed every detail. A misplaced fork on the dinner table could draw a look that said more than any words. She cared deeply about how people saw us. Reputation meant everything to her. She used to say, "A good name is like fine china once broken. It never looks the same again." They loved me. I don't doubt that. But their love came with expectations. Heavy ones. I used to feel it like an invisible rope around my neck tightening every time I drifted from the path they wanted me on. As the eldest son, I was the one they believed would bring honor to the family name. A doctor, maybe. A lawyer. Someone with a framed degree on the wall and a clean desk in a tall building downtown. But that wasn't the path I took. I enlisted in the military at 22, right after graduating college. It wasn't a reckless decision. I thought it through. It felt right. But I knew God. I knew it wasn't what they wanted. My father never said much, but his eyes did. The way he looked at me changed. My mother, she sighed a lot when she talked about me after that. He could have been anything, she once said to a neighbor, not knowing I was within earshot. Such a bright boy. But the military was where I found myself. Out there, with the dust in my teeth and the weight of a pack on my shoulders, I learned who I was. I stood on the line between life and death and didn't flinch. I protected people who couldn't protect themselves. That gave me purpose. I have no regrets. Then there's Bryce, my younger brother. He's 28 now. My parents' pride and joy. He did everything right by their standards. Studied law, stayed close to home, always said the right thing at the right time. He still lives off their support. They don't mind. In fact, they beam when they talk about him. Bryce has that kind of smile that makes people lean in when he speaks. His hair's always perfectly styled, not a strand out of place. He can walk into a room and make everyone feel like they've known him for years. And he knows exactly what to say to make people nod in agreement. He's the perfect version of what my parents wanted me to be. I'm not jealous, honestly. I'm not. Bryce and I are different, and I've made peace with that. But sometimes I wonder if he's ever truly faced hardship. If he's ever had to dig deep when everything around him was falling apart. Or if he just glides through life like a gentle breeze, leaving no trace, no scars, nothing to weigh him down. And then, there's Raina. Just saying her name makes my heart skip a beat. Raina, 30, a nurse at the downtown hospital. We met in college, at one of those crowded parties I never wanted to attend. I was dragged there by some friends, already halfway through making excuses to leave when I saw her. She stood in the corner of the room, wearing a pale green dress, her glossy black hair tied up high, holding a glass of water instead of wine. Her smile was small, almost shy, but when our eyes met it was like the noise in the room fell away. I walked up to her, awkward as hell, cleared my throat, and said, "Not a fan of the jungle juice either." She laughed. "It smells like regret and bad decisions." I grinned. "So just here for the ambience." She tilted her head, studying me for a moment. Maybe I was waiting for someone to ask the right question. That was it. That was the moment. I just knew I wanted to spend my life with her. Raina is unlike any woman I've ever met. She's gentle, but strong. The kind of strength that doesn't shout. She makes me laugh even when I'm at my grumpiest, and God knows I can be a handful. But more than that, she listens. Not the way people pretend to listen. She listens. Like every word I say matters. We've been together for 6 years now. We've weathered storms, more than a few. When she lost her job when I got injured during a training exercise and spent 2 weeks in the hospital, Reina was the one sitting beside my bed, holding my hand. She didn't cry, not in front of me. She just kept whispering, "You're going to be okay. I'm right here." Even when I knew she was scared, she never let it show. Not for my sake. 2 weeks ago, I knelt before her in our front yard under the bright Texas moonlight. The cicadas were buzzing somewhere in the distance. All I had was a simple silver ring, bought with my savings. No fanfare, no orchestra, just me, on one knee, heart pounding like I was back in the field again. She looked at me. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but she didn't say yes. She just pulled me into a hug, held me tightly, and whispered, "Landon, I need time, but I'll wait for you." I nodded, though my heart felt heavy in my chest. I knew what was coming: an 18-month deployment. Long distance. Uncertainty. The kind of test most relationships don't pass. But I trust her. I have to trust her. As I sit here writing these words, I'm packing my bags. My military backpack lies in the corner of the room, next to a pair of boots still caked in dust from my last training session. I've checked everything. Uniform, gear, dagger, and a small notebook, just a cheap, spiral-bound thing where I'll write letters to Reina. I'm not great with words. I never have been. But I want her to know I'm thinking of her every single day. I hope those letters, those small pieces of myself, will be the bridge that keeps us connected, that holds our love steady through the months of silence, time zones, and loneliness. Last night, the night before I leave, I sat on the porch alone. The moonlight filtered through the curtains, soft and pale. A gentle breeze stirred the air, carrying with it the lingering Texas heat and the scent of wildflowers from the nearby field. I thought about my parents, about Bryce, about Reina. I thought about what I was leaving behind and what I would face ahead. War is never easy. I've seen comrades fall, seen the life drain from their eyes as we shouted for medics who never came in time. I've heard bombs explode in the dead of night, the sound so close it felt like the sky was ripping open. But this time, I felt a different kind of fear. Not fear of death. I'd made peace with that a long time ago. This was the fear of loss, of losing the things I love most. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, buttoning up my uniform, adjusting the creases just the way my father taught me. I looked like a soldier, strong, ready, but inside, I felt like something was unraveling. My backpack was already packed, slung over my shoulder as I stepped out of the house. My parents stood by the door. My mother came forward first, throwing her arms around me. Her body trembled against mine. "Be careful, son," she said, her voice choked with emotion. Her tears soaked into my collar. I held her a moment longer. "I'll be okay, Mom. I promise." My father stepped in next. He didn't hug me, he never was the hugging type. But he put a firm hand on my shoulder, gave it a squeeze. His jaw was tight, his expression blank. "You do your duty," he said, not looking me in the eyes. "Come back whole." Bryce lingered behind them, hands in his pockets. He offered a faint smile, like he didn't quite know what to say. "Stay healthy, man," he muttered. "You know, eat well." I just nodded. "Yeah." Later, at the airport, Reina came to see me off. She wore the pale green dress. I loved the same one she wore the night we met. Her hair was loose and natural, catching the breeze each time someone passed us. We didn't say much. We didn't have to. We just stood there, fingers tightly intertwined, trying to memorize each other's face. "Write to me, okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I promise," I said, squeezing her hand. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. "Will you wait for me?" I asked. She nodded slowly. But her eyes, they held a sadness I couldn't quite place. Like she wanted to say more. Like something heavy was sitting just behind her silence. I wanted to ask her what it was. I wanted to know. But before I could, the airport loudspeaker blared, announcing my flight. We kissed, hurried, but deep, and I turned to go. I looked back once. She was still there, just standing, her small figure framed by the movement of the crowd. She didn't wave. She didn't cry. She just stood there, watching me until I disappeared into the terminal. On the plane, I sat by the small window, watching Texas stretch out beneath me, patches of green and brown, slowly swallowed by cloud. I pulled out my notebook, the one I had packed in the side pocket of my bag, and opened to the first page. "Reina, today is the first day I'm away from you. I don't know what lies ahead, but I know I love you. Wait for me." I folded the letter carefully, imagining her hands opening it, her fingers smoothing the paper. I pictured her smile, soft and real, spreading across her face. That thought gave me strength. Strength I didn't know I had. But back home, a plot was already being woven. By the very people I called family. I was deployed to a military base deep in the desert, where the heat was a living, breathing thing. It scorched my skin, wrapped around me like fire. The sand was in everything: my boots, my clothes, the creases of my teeth. It became part of me. The hum of Humvee engines, the distant crack of gunfire, the bitter scent of gunpowder, they were the rhythm of daily life. I was tasked with patrolling, escorting convoys, sometimes confronting the enemy face to face. Each day felt like a battle, not just against what was out there, but against what was inside me. The worry, the uncertainty, the weight of what I'd left behind. I remember one night when I won't ever forget. An artillery shell exploded less than a mile from our camp. The ground trembled. Alarms screamed. Everyone dropped flat, hearts pounding. We didn't know if more were coming. We lay there in the dust, still as corpses, listening to the whistle of the wind mingling with the echoes of the blast. I reached into my pocket, pulled out Raina's photo. My fingers trembled. I clutched it tightly to my chest and whispered, "Wait for me, please." Letters became my lifeline to her, my tether to something real beyond the dust, the noise, and the silence of war. Every night, under the dim glow of an oil lamp flickering inside our tent, I'd pull out my notebook and write to Raina. I told her everything. Not the blood and fire, not always, but the moments in between. The long days of patrol where the sun baked the earth into glass. The sandstorms that rolled in without warning, swallowing the sky until you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. And Tommy Young, full of life, who sang country music at night just to keep the rest of us sane. Off-key, but full of heart. Raina, I wrote one night. Today I saw a fiery red sunset over the desert. It looked like the sky was on fire. I wish you were here to watch it with me. Each line felt like a thread, a thin, fragile string tying me back to Texas. Back to her. I sent those letters through the military mail system, trusting, needing to believe they would reach her. I didn't have the luxury of regular calls. The signal was unreliable, and every spare moment was claimed by rest or responsibility. But I believed the letters were enough, that they'd carry my voice across the ocean and the silence. Some nights, I'd lie awake on my cot, staring at the canvas ceiling above me, listening to the wind whip against the fabric. I'd think of Raina, her smile, the way she'd tie her hair back at the hospital when she was deep in concentration, the way she hugged me before I boarded the plane, so tight it almost hurt. Is she thinking of me too? I'd wonder. Is she standing under the oak tree in her front yard, gazing at the moon like I am now? Even if I was exhausted, even if I'd barely had time to eat, I'd scribble something. Raina, I'm okay. I miss you. Sometimes that was all I had the strength to say. I'm not a poet, never have been. But every word I wrote was true. Raw. From the gut. From the heart. They were pieces of me I hoped would reach her hands and let her feel how much I cared, how much I was still hers. The months crawled. I lived split between two realities, one of sand, bullets, and sleepless nights, and the other, one of letters. Letters where I could dream again, where I could imagine coming home, dropping to one knee, and hearing her say yes. She never wrote back, but I never doubted her. I told myself the war had delayed the mail, that she was busy, that maybe the words just couldn't get through. I trusted her the way I trusted my brothers in arms with my life. Then, after 18 months that felt like a lifetime and eternity etched into my bones, I stepped off the plane at Dallas Airport. The air smelled like rain, the real kind, not the metallic scent of a desert storm. The military backpack slung over my shoulder felt heavier than ever, packed with more than gear, packed with memory, with ghosts, with grit. But in my pocket, I carried the silver ring, the one I'd kept safe through every mission, every sleepless night, every whispered prayer, waiting for the day I'd return, waiting for the moment I'd propose to Raina again. I had survived months that many of my comrades didn't. Tommy, the young soldier with that crooked grin and a voice made for radio, even when he sang off-key, had fallen in an ambush 3 months before I left. I'd stood before his flag-draped coffin at the base, numb, choking back the grief, and made a vow I whispered through gritted teeth. I'll live well, Tommy. For you. For all of you who didn't make it back. So when I stepped off that plane, there was a strange sense of purpose inside me. I was alive, and that had to mean something. I hailed a taxi from the airport and watched familiar neighborhoods blur past the window. Texas looked the same sun-bleached roads, same trimmed hedges, same red brick houses, but I wasn't the same. My hands still bore calluses from weapon drills, my shoulders knew the weight of sandbags, and my heart just wanted to go home. I pictured Raina, 100 different ways, running out the front door in that green dress, crying, laughing, throwing her arms around me. I'd see my mom and dad. Maybe Bryce would crack one of his easy jokes. I didn't need banners or celebration, just a quiet dinner, a welcome home, family. I told them not to come to the airport. I wanted that first moment of peace, not crowds and questions. I just wanted to step inside that red brick house and exhale. But the second the front door opened, something was wrong. It wasn't the air, it was the silence. Cold, stiff, the kind of silence you find in funeral homes, not family rooms. No Raina. No embrace. No laughter. Just my parents, sitting like statues in the living room, barely moving. The curtains were drawn. The TV was off. The light overhead cast this sterile yellow hue on everything. My mom stood, slowly, and came over to hug me. But it wasn't her. Her arms felt mechanical, her hand resting briefly on my back before falling away like it couldn't bear to stay. "You're back, Landon," she said, her voice brittle, like the words had been sitting in her throat too long. My father, in his ever-impeccable suit, nodded once. He didn't stand. He didn't speak. I blinked. Looked past them. Maybe Raina was upstairs. Maybe this was all just a weird moment, some surprise, something unexpected but harmless. "Where's Raina?" I asked, already walking past them, already scanning the hallway. She knew I was coming today, right? My mother let out a slow sigh and sat back down, motioning to the chair across from her. "Landon," she said carefully, "there's something we need to talk about." Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. I lowered myself into the chair, but my body stayed rigid, alert. My hands were fists on my knees. "Raina," my mother continued, eyes fixed on mine. "She's married to Bryce now. They moved away. They're living in Austin." I didn't understand. Not at first. "Married. To Bryce." I repeated it out loud like the words would change shape in the air. "Married." I looked at both of them. "To Bryce? My brother? What the hell are you talking about?" My father finally spoke, his voice as cold and controlled as ever, the same tone he'd used when teaching me how to reverse the car into our narrow driveway years ago. "Landon, you chose this life. You chose to be a soldier. To be gone for years. Did you really think a girl like Raina would wait forever?" My mouth went dry. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to escape. "She said she would." I snapped. I wrote to her every week. I promised I'd come back. I held on to that promise every goddamn day while people around me died. And Bryce, he knew. He knew what she meant to me. I stood, fists clenched so tight I could feel my nails digging into my palms. Rage, betrayal, heartbreak, it all came at once like a flashbang to the chest. My mother met my gaze then, and something about her expression detached, almost annoyed, hit harder than the news itself. Her voice was sharp now. Flat. "You were gone. Life moved on." I stared at her, and for the first time in my life, her eyes looked colder than I'd ever seen. "Landon, don't be foolish," my mother said, her tone cutting through the air like a scalpel. "You chose the military. You chose war over family, over Raina. Do you really think you have the right to blame anyone?" It felt like something inside me cracked. "If you hadn't left," she continued coldly, "things would be different. Raina chose the better man. You need to accept it. A knife in the chest would have hurt less." "Foolish," I repeated, my voice trembling. "I fought to protect this country, to protect this family. And Bryce? What did he do? Steal my girlfriend?" My father stood abruptly, his voice rising for the first time. "That's enough, Landon. You don't get to blame your brother. Bryce was here. He was the one taking care of Raina when you weren't. You abandoned her. And now you face the consequences." "Abandoned?" My legs nearly gave out beneath me. I looked at the people who were supposed to have my back, the people I had carried in my heart through gunfire, sandstorms, and grief. And now all I could see in their faces was blame. Not support. Not understanding. Just coldness. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. I just stood there, breathing hard, fighting the wave that threatened to pull me under. "Where's Raina?" I asked finally, my voice little more than air. "I want to hear it from her." My mother shook her head. "They've moved, Landon. She doesn't want to see you. You need to let this go." "Let this go?" Without another word, I turned and walked out of the house. The door clicked shut behind me like a lock slamming in place. The silver ring in my pocket felt like a stone pressing against my heart with every step I took. I had survived war, bullets, bombs, but nothing in those 18 months prepared me for the betrayal in that house. I stepped outside, the Texas sun glaring above me, but all I felt was cold. Raina, my Raina, now married to Bryce. And my own family, my blood, had turned on me, treated me like a ghost who deserved this. But something wasn't right. I knew it. I had sent those letters. I had kept every promise. There had been no silence from my side. So why didn't she wait? I walked for hours, like a man unanchored, past places that used to feel like home, past the dry, grassy field where Raina and I had once strolled, hand in hand, past the old oak tree where I'd knelt with that silver ring and asked her to share forever with me. Now the ring pressed hard against my chest, a bitter talisman of what I'd lost or what I'd been robbed of. By nightfall, I found myself outside a rundown motel off the highway. The neon sign blinked like it couldn't decide whether to live or die. I took a room. Cheap. Dim. I lay on the bed, staring at the stained ceiling, the walls closing in. My thoughts were a whirlwind. Raina, Bryce, my parents, the missing letters. Something didn't add up. Raina would never just leave me like that. Not without a word. The next morning, my eyes stung from a sleepless night, but my mind was clearer than it had been in days. I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to start. Dina, Raina's best friend, closer to her than anyone. They'd been inseparable in college, shared a dozen secrets I was never even allowed to know. If anyone knew the truth, it was Dina. I found her number in an old contact list buried in my phone. My fingers trembled as I dialed. Once, twice, 3 rings. Then I heard her voice, surprised, cautious, but warm. Landon, is that really you? You're back? Dina, I said, my voice raspy from a sleepless night. It's about Raina, I said, my voice dry, barely held together. I need the truth. There was a pause on the line. I could hear Dina's breath catch before she responded in a hushed, cautious tone. Okay, meet me at the cafe on Main Street. 11. Click. That was all. The cafe on Main Street. The one with the wide windows and the peeling blue door. Raina and I used to sit there on Saturday mornings. We'd laugh about nothing and everything, her recounting hospital chaos, me daydreaming out loud about building a quiet life with her after the military. The sound of spoons clinking, the buzz of conversation, the gentle jazz playing from the overhead speakers, it had all been part of a rhythm I thought would never end. As I walked in, the warm scent of roasted beans wrapped around me, so painfully familiar it hurt. My boots dragged across the tile floor, still stiff from sand and sweat. People bustled past, cups in hand, but the moment I saw her, everything fell silent. Dina, her blonde hair tied up high, strands falling loose near her temple, blue eyes that looked older than the last time I'd seen them. She sat in the corner by the window, wearing a crisp white blouse that made it obvious she'd just come off a shift. When our eyes met, her expression shifted pity, concern, and something else. Guilt, maybe. I slid into the seat across from her, without ceremony. My voice was raw. Raina married Bryce. My parents said she doesn't want to see me. I leaned in. What happened, Dina? I need to know. All of it. She exhaled sharply, both hands cupping her coffee mug, as if holding it grounded her. Her eyes searched mine. Landon, I don't know where to begin, she said, her voice tight. But you deserve the truth. What happened while you were gone? It's not as simple as you think. I said nothing, waiting. My heart was pounding so loud I thought it might burst. She continued, slowly, like each word had to be peeled from a wound. Raina tried, Landon. She really tried. After you left, she checked the mailbox every day. Every single day. I remember her calling me, crying. She thought maybe you'd forgotten her. Or worse, that you weren't coming back. I gripped the edge of the table. But I wrote to her, I said. I wrote every week. I poured everything into those letters. Dina nodded, gently. I believe you. But Raina never got them. The weight of her words settled like lead in my chest. She visited your parents often, Dina said, hoping maybe they'd heard from you. Maybe they'd know where you were, how you were doing. But every time, your mother, Ellen, her voice faltered for a moment. She said things that made Raina doubt. What kind of things? I asked, the heat rising in my voice. Dina looked away. That you'd never leave the military. That you weren't coming back. That Raina was wasting her youth waiting for a ghost. She told her that you chose war over her. I sat back, stunned. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. My own mother. She said Raina deserved someone who'd stay, who wouldn't disappear for years. I looked down at my hands, my fists curled tight. And Bryce? I asked, where was he in all this? Dina's eyes hardened. Her lips thinned. That's the worst part, she said. He was around. A lot. He started showing up everywhere. He brought coffee to the hospital. Took Raina out to dinner, Dina said, and her voice cracked just slightly. Said all the right things. I sat there frozen, her words falling like stones in my chest. At first she refused. She continued, but you know Raina. She was lonely, Landon, with no letters from you, nothing to hold on to. Her voice trailed off. I saw her swallow hard. She started to waver. I closed my eyes for a second, trying to breathe through the pain stabbing at my chest. You tried to stop it, didn't you? Dina nodded, her hands tightening around the coffee cup. I told her to wait for you, I begged her. But your mother and Bryce, they were like a storm sweeping her away. They made her feel like waiting was foolish, like it was a waste of her life. My blood ran hot. You're saying they manipulated her? My voice was low now, sharp. What did they do with my letters? Dina looked around, lowered her voice. Raina once saw your mother open the family mailbox and take out a letter. She thought it was from you, recognized your handwriting, I guess. When she asked, Ellen said it was just a bill. A bitter laugh escaped me. Of course she did. Raina wasn't sure at the time, Dina said. But she started to suspect something was wrong. But by then, she didn't need to finish. I already knew. Bryce proposed to her 9 months after you left, she said softly. She said yes not because she loved him, but because she was exhausted. Heartbroken. She thought you'd abandoned her. I couldn't speak. Her words landed like a slow, agonizing explosion. My throat was dry. My chest felt hollow. Dina's eyes shimmered. I'm sorry, Landon. I swear to you, I tried. I just nodded, barely able to hold myself together. Thanks, Dina, I managed to say. Thanks for telling me. I left the cafe without saying anything more. I needed to breathe. I went straight to the old oak tree, the one where I'd gotten down on one knee, Raina laughing through her tears. The place we carved our initials when we were just teenagers. Now it stood tall and indifferent, the wind shifting through its leaves like whispers from a life that didn't belong to me anymore. The scent of dry grass carried a weight I wasn't ready for. I closed my eyes, letting it pull me back. Her gentle smile. That final hug before the airport. The way she held my hand like she was anchoring herself to me. And now, Dina's words echoed louder than any gunshot I'd heard in the desert. Your mother intercepted your letters. Bryce exploited her loneliness. She thought you'd abandoned her. I clenched my jaw so tight it hurt. My family, the ones I trusted more than anything had torn my life apart while I was halfway around the world fighting for them. Raina, the woman I carried through every patrol, every sleepless night, every whispered prayer. Now my brother's wife. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the ring. The silver was warm from being pressed against my chest all day, but it might as well have been on fire. I stared at it, feeling it sear into my palm. I didn't go back to the red brick house. I couldn't. That house, the laughter, the photos on the mantle, the smell of my mother's coffee in the morning, none of it meant anything anymore. It was a shrine of lies. Instead, I rented a small apartment on the outskirts of Dallas. A cracked ceiling, stained walls, windows that rattled with the wind. It wasn't a home, just four walls to hide inside. I dropped my military backpack in the corner, let it fall like the weight it had always been. My boots, still caked with sand, sat beside it, mute witnesses to everything I'd endured. In that apartment, I wasn't Lieutenant Landon Hart. I wasn't a soldier, or a son, or a lover. I was a hollow man, betrayed by blood, forgotten by love. For the first few days, I didn't leave the bed. I lay there, unmoving, staring up at the cracked ceiling, letting memories of war and betrayal blend together. I saw Tommy again. In my dreams, in the stillness of early morning when sleep clung like a shroud, I saw him, the young soldier who sang country songs through cracked lips and sand-caked smiles. He lay there in the dust, his blood soaking into the desert like ink into parchment, like his life had never been there at all. Then came the sounds, the sickening crunch of boots in chaos, bombs thundering, voices screaming in the night. I turned and Raina was there, her eyes soft with memory, her voice echoing, "I'll wait for you." But she didn't wait. She married Bryce. No, Dina said she was manipulated, pushed into it by my mother and brother. But that fire in my chest didn't care. It raged with betrayal and disbelief. I wanted to believe Dina. I did. But when you're burning, reason doesn't soothe the pain. It just watches. I started keeping a journal, not for Raina anymore, but for me. For the soldier who came back to nothing. Today I learned the truth. I wrote one night, my hand trembling, the pen blotting like tears. My family took everything from me. But what did I do wrong? I fought for my country. I kept my promise to Raina. Why did they do this? The words didn't fix anything, but they kept me from unraveling. After a week of isolation, I knew I needed more than ink and silence. I walked into a plain office near the Dallas base. A dusty flag hung in the corner, and a ticking clock measured out every second. I felt hollow. That's where I met Dr. Karen. Middle-aged, gentle but sharp-eyed. The kind of woman who didn't flinch, even when staring down a storm inside someone else. She sat across from me, her notepad in hand, and listened as I told her everything. About the war, about Raina, about the letters that never came, the hugs that never waited, the family that turned its back. When I finished, she asked quietly, "Landon, you've been through war, and now a personal loss. What you're feeling, anger, pain, disorientation, is normal. But you need to face it." Her calmness unnerved me. Then she asked the question I hadn't dared think. "Who are you angriest at, your family, Raina, or yourself?" I froze. Everything inside me screamed my mother. Bryce. But something deeper whispered something worse. Me. What if I hadn't enlisted? What if I'd stayed? What if I hadn't walked away from the only life I knew, thinking it would still be waiting when I came back? I didn't have an answer. Only more silence. The nightmares followed. One night, I dreamed I stood in the middle of the desert holding a letter addressed to Raina. The wind howled and the sand surged up, snatching it from my fingers, tearing it away like everything else I loved. Another night, I saw Bryce, smirking, wearing a tux, holding Raina's hand at the altar while I stood frozen, invisible in the crowd. I woke soaked in sweat, my lungs gasping like I'd run miles under fire. Dr. Karen showed me how to breathe through it, how to write the dreams down, dissect them. But every morning I woke with that same heaviness in my chest, like I was still carrying a full pack on broken ground. Then one afternoon, I met Mason. A dingy little bar near the base. Quiet. Dim. I was nursing a drink, staring through it like it might answer all my questions, when he sat down beside me. Late 50s, salt and pepper hair, deep lines on his face, and a scar that curved from his temple to the base of his cheek. He didn't ask, "What's wrong?" He didn't offer small talk. He just ordered a beer and looked at me like he already knew everything I'd been through. "You look like you've been run over by a truck, Hart," he said, voice rough but edged with dark humor. I didn't laugh. I just looked at him and said, "You have no idea." But I told him anyway. Not because I trusted him. Not because I needed advice. But because I had to let it out or it was going to rot inside me. He listened. Not a single interruption. Just sipped his beer, nodded once or twice. When I finished, he set the glass down, leaned in slightly, and looked me straight in the eye. "Landon," he said, low and firm, "I've seen men lose everything. Family, friends, themselves. But you know what makes a soldier get back up?" I said nothing. "Justice," he said. "That's it. If you don't fight for justice for yourself, then who the hell will?" His words hit me like a slap to the soul, like a ray of light piercing the darkness within me. I thought of Raina, her laugh, her promise, her silence, the intercepted letters, my mother's cold calculations, Bryce's opportunistic charm. They had stolen my happiness, carved it out of my chest while I was thousands of miles away fighting for something bigger than myself. But I wasn't a man who gave up. I had survived war deserts filled with blood and sand, nights laced with gunfire and dread. I could survive this too. I had to. I stepped out of the bar, Mason's words still echoing in my skull like a war drum. "If you don't fight for justice for yourself, then who the hell will?" The street was drenched in the orange-pink glow of a dying sun, the sky burning the same shade as the anger simmering in my chest. This pain, this betrayal, it couldn't be where my story ended. I walked home with a fire I hadn't felt in weeks. Not hope exactly. Resolve. Back at the apartment, I sat in the glow of my old laptop, the hum of the fan steady as my heartbeat. I hadn't opened this thing much since coming back. It still smelled faintly of the base dust, sweat, and heat. The blue light flickered across my face as I opened my email account. I started with my military inbox, the one I used when I couldn't handwrite letters. The inbox was as empty as I remembered, no replies from Raina. Just silence. But something made me click on the sent folder. My eyes narrowed. Some of the emails were gone. Deleted. But not by me. They had timestamps. Entries I didn't remember erasing. Who the hell had been in here? I wasn't a hacker, I could barely update my software, but I knew someone who could dig. Jared. I picked up the phone, fingers jittery. He answered on the second ring. "Hart," he said, voice gruff but familiar. "Man, it's been a while." "Jared, I need your help." "That bad, huh?" "Worse." I paused. "I think someone deleted my emails. From back when I was deployed. Stuff I sent to Raina." "What kind of trouble are you in, Hart?" he asked, half joking, half serious. "Family trouble. Big trouble. My mother, my brother, they did something to my letters. I need to recover what I wrote. I need to know what happened." He didn't hesitate. "I'll see what I can do. Might take a bit, but I'll pull what I can from the backup servers. If they were deleted from your end, but not permanently wiped, I'll find them." "Thanks, Jared. I owe you. You owe me a beer and maybe your soul, but we'll settle for the beer." I managed a faint chuckle. "Deal." While I waited, I grabbed my notebook and began scribbling like a man possessed. Everything Dina had told me poured out: my mother opening the mailbox, Bryce hovering around Raina like a vulture, the 9 months that shattered everything. I drew a timeline. Day I left. Letters sent. No replies. Bryce's sudden appearances. Raina's silence. Proposal. Marriage. All in 9 months. I stared at the line. How had it all fallen apart that fast? I wondered if Raina was happy in Austin with Bryce. Or was she trapped in something she didn't choose? Was she suffering like I was? I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't fight this alone. Through a vet I met at the bar, I was referred to Henry Caldwell, a family law attorney in downtown Dallas. His office was cramped, filled with dusty volumes and the musk of old carpet and older paper. He wore glasses that constantly slid down his nose and had a stare like steel. I sat across from him, and for once, I didn't hold back. The letters. My mother. My brother. Raina, I said, voice tight. They broke us. They blocked everything I tried to send. Raina thought I'd abandoned her. Henry listened, hands folded. He nodded occasionally, but said nothing until I was done. When I finished, he leaned back and adjusted his glasses. You want evidence, he said slowly, and justice. I want the truth, I replied, and I want them to answer for it. He nodded again, more deliberately this time. If your family tampered with your mail, intercepted, or withheld letters, there's a possible violation of federal privacy laws, especially if they accessed your email without permission. He pulled a legal pad closer and scribbled something. But we'll need something solid. Hard proof. Letters, emails, logs, anything that shows they deliberately blocked communication. Henry agreed to take the case provided I could bring him more. Start with your parents' house, he said, tapping his pen against a yellow legal pad. If they kept the letters, they might still be there. Just the thought of going back to that red brick house made my gut twist. That house wasn't home anymore. It was a crime scene. But I knew he was right. I waited until I was sure they'd be out some neighborhood dinner party they never missed. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest. The streets were quiet. The same hedges still lined the driveway. Same wind chimes hanging by the porch. But nothing felt familiar. Standing at the front door, my heart pounded like it used to before patrols in the desert tents, unsure of what waited on the other side. I pulled my old key from my wallet. It slid in with a soft click. The door creaked open. Coffee and floor cleaner. It used to smell like comfort. Now it just smelled like lies. I moved room to room methodically. Drawers, closets, cabinets. Every framed picture I passed felt like an accusation. Family vacations, birthdays, my graduation. Raina in one of them, standing next to me. The weight of betrayal sat heavy in my chest. It took hours, 2 whole hours of careful searching before I finally found them. A wooden box tucked beneath my parents' bed, covered in dust, but locked. I pried it open with a flathead screwdriver from the garage. Inside, my letters. Every single one I had sent. And Raina's, too. Her handwriting familiar, small curls at the end of her letters. Some were tear-stained. One was unopened. I sat on the floor, shaking, the pages scattered across my lap. Every word I had written, every promise, every update from deployment had been stolen from her. And every word she had sent to me had been kept from me. My hands trembled as I called Jared. You were right, he said. I traced the login activity. Your military email was accessed multiple times from your parents' home computer. He was quiet for a second. Landon, they wiped stuff. But they weren't careful. I pulled a few cache drafts, timestamps, all from that IP address. That was it. That was the proof. The letters. The digital trail. These were my weapons. Mason had been right all along. I couldn't let this go. I wasn't the broken man who came back. I was Landon Hart, and I would make them answer for what they did. But I couldn't just storm in and shout accusations. They'd deny it. Twist it. I needed a bigger move. That's when I remembered Savannah. We'd gone to college together. She was an investigative reporter now, writing for the Dallas Morning News. Sharp, tenacious, and she owed me. I dialed her number, my hand steady despite the pounding in my chest. Savannah, Landon, wow, it's been years. I need to talk. It's about something big. I've got a story, but I want to stay anonymous. What kind of story? A soldier, betrayed by his own family while deployed. I have the proof. She was quiet for a moment. Then meet me. Tomorrow. Downtown. Same cafe near campus. Yeah, I said. And Savannah, call me a veteran. That's all I want. No name. No attention. Just the truth. She didn't argue. You got it. The next day, at the cafe, I laid everything out. The letters. The emails. The betrayal. Raina. Bryce. My mother. Savannah didn't interrupt. Her eyes lit up the way they used to in journalism class when she'd found a lead no one else had. She took notes, asked sharp questions. When I finished, she leaned forward. This isn't just a family issue, she said, her voice low but firm. This is a story about loyalty. About what happens when a soldier returns home and finds the battlefield never ended. I don't want revenge, I told her. Just justice. Let the world see it. But not my name. Please. I'll make sure it gets published, she promised. For days later, the article ran. A soldier betrayed by family while serving. The headline screamed across the Sunday edition. Savannah's writing cut clean, like a scalpel. And she kept her word. No names. No clues. But every detail laid bare. Clearly, a military officer had sent letters from the battlefield to his girlfriend only to discover, upon return, that his family had intercepted them, manipulated her, pushed her into marrying his brother. Savannah didn't just tell the story, she bled it onto the page. She quoted directly from the letters I'd written, some of my most vulnerable words, the kind I'd only ever meant for Raina. She ended the article with a question that cut straight through everything. Is loyalty to one's country worth the price of betrayal by family? By noon, it was everywhere. Veteran groups reposted it. Local news outlets shared it. Strangers commented and reshared. I sat in my apartment, the walls still stained from years of neglect, scrolling through the comments on X. I can't believe a family would do this to a soldier. They should be ashamed. I cried reading this. I lost my family to war too. This soldier needs support. Where can we reach him? A text came in from Jared. Hart, you did good. The whole team at the base is behind you. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen, the words blurring. This wasn't vindication, not yet, but it was a crack in the silence. Meanwhile, in the suburbs, the fallout had begun. My mother used to be the neighborhood's matriarch. Everyone greeted her when she stepped into the garden. Now, cold stares, doors that didn't open, conversations that stopped when she passed. My father, proud, polished, always the gentleman, was quietly dropped from his golf club's inner circle. His phone, once buzzing with invitations and praise, grew still. But the hardest blow hit Bryce. Dina, through a mutual friend, let me know what had happened. Bryce had walked into his law firm, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow, trying to explain, trying to talk his way out like he always did. But this time, no one wanted to hear him. The firm suspended him. Conduct damaging to the company's reputation. When I heard, I didn't smile. I didn't feel triumph. Just a cold, empty void. Not joy, just the shifting. Like justice was coming not as a storm, but as slow, creeping frost. I could feel it spreading. About a month after the article was published, I finally left that rundown apartment on the outskirts of Dallas. Those walls had heard my worst nights where I shook from dreams, where I screamed without sound, where I nearly forgot who I was. The new place was different, closer to downtown, small but bright. White walls, fresh paint, light-colored wood floors. There was a small table by the window where I kept my notebook and a cactus Mason had given me. "You need something as resilient as you," he'd said with a wrinkled smile, passing it to me one evening at the bar. His scar twisted as he grinned. This apartment wasn't home. Not yet. But it felt like a start. The start of someone else, someone new. I began working at a veteran support center, just a few blocks away. Didn't pay much. But it gave me something I hadn't had since coming back. Purpose. Every day, I met people like me, people carrying ghosts. Tom, a former Marine who lost his leg in Afghanistan, joked through his pain, but once told me, quietly, I wake up some nights thinking it's still there. Lisa, a combat medic, wouldn't meet anyone's eyes at first. But she started opening up in sessions, the weight in her voice lifting just slightly. I shared enough of my story, not all, never all, to let them know I got it. "You've been through hell, heart," Tom said one day, gripping my shoulder. "You're stronger than you think." In the mornings, I jogged through the park, my breath rising in the cool Dallas air. I'd pause by a wooden bench near the edge of the trail, where the sun crept through the oak trees like gold smoke. And every time I saw that light, I thought of the oak tree in Texas, the one where I proposed to Raina. I no longer cried when I thought of her, but the pain lingered like a scar that no longer bled, yet ached whenever the wind turned cold. The silver ring stayed in my pocket, not for remembrance, but for reminder. I had loved. I had fought. I had survived. My family didn't leave me alone, though. 2 weeks after I moved into the new apartment, I got a voicemail from my mother. "Landon, you can't do this to our family. You know I love you. Call me back." Her voice trembled, clinging to guilt, or fear, or both. But underneath it all, I still heard the same thing I always did from her: control. I deleted it. No response. 2 days later, my father called. His tone was clipped, stern, like I was some misbehaving child. "Landon, enough. You're destroying this family. We need to talk." I stared at the screen, watched the call come and go. My thumb hovered over the callback button. And then I locked the phone and tossed it aside. I didn't want more excuses, more gaslighting, more blame. Bryce, though he tried the hardest. He sent a long message. Emotional, carefully worded. "Brother, I didn't want this to happen. Raina, she chose me. Can't you forgive?" I laughed. Bitter. Forgive? He had seen an opening in my absence. Exploited Raina's loneliness. Manipulated her into replacing me. And now he wanted to smooth it over with a few carefully chosen words? I blocked him. No reply. Dina told me later he was falling apart. The law firm hadn't just suspended him, they were under pressure to fire him. My mother stopped leaving the house. The same woman who once relished hosting brunches and playing gracious hostess now hid behind curtains. My father, the man who'd once puffed with pride about our family name, sat silent in the living room, watching the garden like it might grow an apology. Did I feel joy? No, just a stillness. Justice had arrived, but it didn't fill the hole they left in me. Then, about 2 months later, Dina texted. "Landon, Raina wants to meet you. She's not okay. She's in Austin, but will come to Dallas if you agree." My heart stuttered when I read her name. Raina, the woman I once saw a whole life with, now Bryce's wife. I replied, "What does she want, Dina?" Her response came fast. "She wants to talk. To tell you the truth. She regrets everything. Landon, Bryce doesn't love her, he just wanted to beat you." I sat frozen. Part of me wanted to see her, to look in her eyes, to hear the words, to know if she really meant it. Another part of me, terrified, of the wound opening back up, of breaking down again. The next morning, I jogged. Same park, same bench. The sky just waking up, sunrise melting through the clouds. I thought of Mason, of Tom, of the veterans I now helped. They faced their pasts. So why couldn't I? I texted Dina back. Okay, tell her to meet me at the park near my apartment. Saturday, 10 a.m. When Saturday came, the air was cool, a rare softness in the Dallas heat. White clouds drifted across a crisp blue sky. I stood under the oak tree, hands in my pockets. My light blue shirt clung to my back slightly in the breeze. The silver ring still rested in my pocket, heavy as ever. Then I saw her, Raina, wearing a gray coat, her dark hair loose, unbrushed. She looked thinner, her face pale, eyes red like she hadn't slept in days. She stepped closer. Landon, she said, her voice shaking. Thank you for meeting me. I gave a small nod. I didn't trust my voice yet. We sat on the wooden bench. There was a gap between us, but it may as well have been an ocean. She looked down, then slowly up. I don't know how to make you forgive me, she began, voice low but clear, but I want you to know the truth. I kept my eyes on her. I didn't say a word. When you left, I waited for your letters. Every day. She swallowed. Her fingers trembled. Your mother, she told me you didn't want me anymore. That you chose the military. She opened the mail, Landon. I saw her take a letter from the box, but she said it was a bill. Raina's voice cracked, trembling with the weight of the memory. I wanted to believe in you, but I was so lonely. My heart ached. Hearing those words I had imagined, dreamed of, dreaded. She kept speaking, eyes down, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Bryce was everywhere. He brought coffee, took me to dinner. He kept saying you weren't coming back, that you chose the army over me. And I was weak, Landon. I thought you'd abandoned me. Her voice broke again, tears streaming down her cheeks. When he proposed, I said yes. Not because I loved him, but because I was exhausted. I was done hoping. But I was wrong. I never stopped loving you. She sobbed, covering her face with one hand. I sat frozen, every muscle tense. I wanted to reach for her, to take that pain and crush it with my bare hands, but I didn't move. My fists stayed buried in my coat pockets. I forced my voice to stay steady. Raina, do you know what those letters meant to me? She looked up, eyes wet, desperate. I wrote every night. I said, the words shaking loose like dust off old bones. Between bombs, between patrols, while men screamed and died around me. I wrote to you, because that was the only way I kept myself together. She nodded rapidly, shoulders shaking. I know, Landon. I read the article. I know what your mother did. I'm sorry. I should have fought harder. I should have known better. But I was broken. Her voice collapsed into silence. I couldn't hold back anymore. I reached out and took her hand. It was ice cold, fragile, like a bird trembling in a storm. I wouldn't blame you if you hated me, she whispered. I needed you to know. I'm sorry. I looked at her, really looked. She was thinner, wearier, older in her sadness. But those eyes? Still Raina's. Gentle, sincere, just scarred. I don't hate you, I said quietly. But I don't know if I can forgive. Not now. She closed her eyes and nodded, wiping her tears with a crumpled tissue. Then she stood. I understand, she said softly. I just want you to live well, Landon. You deserve it. And with that, she turned. Her small frame disappeared under the oak canopy, her footsteps fading like a chapter closing. 6 months after that morning, I left Dallas. Not to run, but to start over for real this time. I moved to San Antonio. The city breathed quieter. Tree-lined streets and that lazy river that curved like a whisper through town. Spanish roofs glowing red in the sun. I found a small apartment in Alamo Heights. From the balcony, I could hear sparrows every morning. The walls were white, still smelling faintly of fresh paint and pine. There was light and space. A new chapter. I bought a bookshelf, stacked it with psychology books and memoirs of veterans. Books that reminded me I wasn't alone. That pain had a language. Mason's cactus sat on the windowsill, spiky, stubborn, still thriving. You need something as resilient as you, he'd once told me, with that old smile creased deep into his leathery face. I carried that with me. At the San Antonio Veteran Support Center, a low brick building tucked beside a patch of wildflowers, I found my purpose. I wasn't a broken soldier anymore. I was someone who listened, who understood. I worked with people like Javier, a special forces vet whose eyes jolted open at night, hearing phantom gunfire in his dreams. Or Maria, a former pilot whose smile always faltered when she spoke of her friend, the one who died in the crash. I sat across from them at the counseling room's old wooden table, warm sunlight slanting through the blinds. I didn't say much about myself, just enough. Enough to let them know the silence between us was safe. And as I sat in those rooms, day after day, I realized something. I thought I'd lost everything. Once, I told Javier after another of his restless nights left him hollow-eyed and quiet. I thought I'd lost everything. He looked at me, as if bracing for me to finish with pity. But I didn't give him that. I gave him truth. But I learned that no matter what you lose, you can rebuild. Brick by brick. He didn't say anything right away. Just nodded once. But that nod, it meant something. In the afternoons, I led coping skills sessions at the center. Veterans would gather in the small, sun-drenched room, faces lined with war and weariness, and I would guide them through breathing exercises, journaling techniques, grounding tools. We sat in circles, the air heavy with silence and stories waiting to be spoken. We can't erase the past, I told them one day, standing in front of the whiteboard, marker in hand, but no need for it. But we can choose how it defines us. You're here, alive, still fighting. That's already a victory. I said it calmly, evenly. But those words weren't just for them. They were for me. Every time someone left the room standing a little straighter, speaking a little clearer, I felt something in me stitch itself closed. Not all at once, but a little at a time. In the mornings, I jogged along the San Antonio River. The cobbled path curved beneath stone bridges and past quiet cafes that smelled like fresh tortillas and spiced meat. The river reflected the sky like it held no memory of yesterday's pain. I always stopped at one bench, the one near the bend where the water caught the first slant of sunrise. I'd sit there, catch my breath, and reach into my pocket. The silver ring was still there, no longer heavy, still a part of me, but not an anchor. I thought of Raina sometimes, of my family, but the pain was softer now, worn down like sea glass. I'd learned to let go, not forget, just stop letting it own me. Then, one evening, just as I stepped into my apartment and kicked off my shoes, my phone buzzed. Dina, Landon, Raina sent you a letter. She asked me to pass it on. Should I send it? I froze. Her name on the screen made my chest tighten. Raina. I hadn't heard from her since that morning in the park, where her tears had fallen like confession. I stared at the message for a full minute before typing slowly. Send it, Dina. Thank you. 3 days later, I came home from the center, and there it was, an envelope. Plain white. My name scrawled in her familiar handwriting. I sat down at my small table. The desk lamp cast a warm pool of light over the envelope. My heart pounded. I picked it up with both hands. I paused, then opened it. Her voice came back to me through ink and silence. Landon, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to write it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I regret every day. For not being strong enough. For believing your mother. For letting Bryce manipulate me. I leaned back in my chair, letting the words hit one by one. I live in Austin. But it's not living. Bryce doesn't love me. He just wanted to beat you. I'm rebuilding. Step by step. Like you. I blinked, throat tight. I heard from Dina that you're helping veterans in San Antonio. I'm proud of you, Landon. You've always been the strongest person I know. I hope one day you find peace. Like you've helped me find hope again. I won't write again. Won't bother you. I just want you to live well. Raina. When I finished reading, I sat there for a long time. The tears came, but I didn't let them fall. The letter wasn't a plea. It was a goodbye, not an ending. A release. For both of us. To move forward. I folded the letter gently, then opened the small wooden box on the shelf, the one that held a photo of Tommy, my old military insignia, a few dirt-stained keepsakes from another life. I placed Raina's letter inside, then closed the lid, not out of anger, but because I knew we both needed time to heal separately. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.